Rooms are just privately hired. You know, this is a horrible, grotesque situation of corruption that's going on. My friend Sheila might want to have a few words to tell you what's happened with her. You know, she's had 16 years in combat. You know, an innocent woman who, and her husband, you know, they came over here to escape the corruption in the country they're from, and they met with a hydra-headed monster over here. But, you know, were they politically targeted? It appears so. Huge problems with Ali Desai, who was in the Metropolitan Police, he was a commander, been in prison twice, 2 or 3 times. But, you know, there's so much freaking corruption and nobody's really joining up the dots. As David Icke says, join up the dots.
Yes.
You know, let's get back to basic principles. You know, who is claiming this money? Why are they claiming the money? Where is the contract? Where is the proof I ever got the money? How can you claim what I've never had? How can I repay what I've never had? You know, that never seems to happen in all the sophistry of English courts. And, you know, I'm ashamed to be British. I think it's horrible what's happening in our courts. They flagellate you. They wreck your lives. I mean, that Frederick Rodell had it so right. You know, he said a group of medicine men dominate our lives. You know, how is this allowed? The Law Society has got about 170,000 members, solicitors, barristers. Sheila and Rajesh's story is about a rogue calling himself a PhD solicitor. He actually he wasn't a solicitor. He wasn't even a basic solicitor, let alone was he a doctorate. You know, he actually conned everyone that he had this, he had bought a Mickey Mouse law degree from Hawaii, which got shut down at a university, inverted commas, which got shut down by the American Securities Exchange Commission, which is the equivalent of our FSA. And he had been in prison for telemarketing scams. He was a bit of a dimwit, I think, anyway. And, you know, a whole checkered history. And he came to England, a hotbed of fraud. Gates are wide open, they welcome you with open arms for money. I don't know what the Law Society receives for every solicitor registered with them, but they've now got a mighty big problem because these solicitors aren't insurable. And one of the biggest insurers pulled out of the market actually in October, and it kept going off. You couldn't access it online because it kept being taken offline because it was such a big move. But again, this wasn't really talked about very much. They become uninsurable. The games and tricks that the legal professionals are playing are so dire, so dastardly, so cruel, so iniquitous that the insurers can't carry on insuring them, because if you notify the underwriter or the insurer that they're committing fraud, they are compelled to withdraw the professional indemnity cover. It's that simple. The same applies to the fake trustees. False trustees. They have to be appointed by the Secretary of State with a valid court order. They don't exist. KPMG claim to be trustees on our case. There's no valid court order. I wrote back to them. I said, what trustees? Show me. You haven't got any trustees. You know, you have to laugh. At the end of the day, they can't make you respond to fraud. You know, we have to really think about it. They call us court users. Are we court users out of choice, or because we're ending up defending something that doesn't exist? Many, many cases of these don't exist. She's been in and out of court, and we met in the House of Lords in 2009. She's been in many, many times, like as have I, and there's nothing there. And they're all just playing this game, which shows there's no independence in our judiciary. There are some very outstanding judges, but not very many. I mean, I wish we could have Lord Denning back again. But, you know, we need to overhaul this. We need a complete overhaul. I think the courts are doing huge damage to us, huge damage to people's lives. You know, people have been terrorised, they're having to pay huge amounts of money, ridiculous court fees, not worth it, and you don't get a fair hearing, you don't get a fair trial. You know, we need the people's courts, we need to create our own juries, you know. We just have to say to them, we're not going to use your way anymore, it's not working, it's corrupted, it's not fit for purpose. That is easily demonstrated with many, many cases. And this character, who was empowered by the Law Society, he's had a field day. They recorded 42 victims. Do you want me to read the summary I did for Panorama? Yes. I'd just like to, in concluding, I'd just like to share this famous quote from Lord Denning's statement in Lazarus Estates Limited versus Beazley, where he actually said, fraud unravels everything. No court in this land will allow a person to keep an advantage which he has obtained by fraud. No judgment of a court, no order of a minister can be allowed to stand if it has been obtained by fraud. Fraud unravels everything. The court is careful not to find fraud unless it is distinctly pleaded and proved. But once it is proved, it vitiates judgments, contracts, and all transactions whatsoever. Now, with that, it should be obvious and should be common sense that people can realise that we should have that protection, but the opposite is playing out. I know people who've had 7 High Court judgments in their favour, and the people that caused the injustice, where the judges ruled that the bankruptcy order should never have been made, and that these people were victims of a miscarriage of justice, the people involved with perpetrating and doing the wrong kept coming back for their costs to the victims. Have you ever heard of such a thing? And yet the maxim, the principle of law says no legal right can arise from an unlawful act or omission. I think it's judex in re suo non oritur. I'll have to double check that in Latin. But no legal right can arise, and yet we have a situation where bankruptcy is being misused. And in particular, there's an accounting firm called Kingston Smith who have produced at least 3 or 4 fake trustees in many, many years. None of them have a valid certificate of appointment from the Secretary of State. You cannot believe the trickery that's gone on in some of these cases. People claiming a right to claim estates for their costs despite High Court orders, these bankruptcies should never have been made. They couldn't do that other than in the shadow court, which has no force of law, no rights of law. Even the bankruptcy they put on me and my husband, it was done in a shadow court. The judge was privately hired. He was a practicing solicitor. He was a deputy district judge. And the barrister was sitting there colluding with him when they were sitting together in the courtroom like this before it started. There was no independence. Horror story. And when I challenged the judge's independence, he told me I had to leave the courtroom. And they called in security who escorted me out and apologised profusely to me. But it wasn't a lawful court. And yet, they still rubber-stamped this false bankruptcy on us. And we're not insolvent, we're not bankrupt. The government's got this magazine called the Gazette, and they think that by publishing it in the Gazette, that means you're bankrupt. Nonsense. What is happening is we have a very corrupt cabal operating, calling themselves the Insolvency Service, disservice. They have no physical register. They have a private sector, private interest board. That can't be right. No physical register, no registrar. They are nothing more than a website, which is an advertising website, telling all the mates in the hyenas in the associated professions and the likes of the accountants and the trustees and the whatever they call them, the receivers. They advertise it. This person's now in the Gazette. Go for them. And they suddenly get this flood of mail coming and telling them how dangerous, bankruptcy could divest you of everything you own. It's a scam. Advertising website. What happened to our rights of privacy? What happened to due process? What happened to proving the debt? Courts have forgotten why they're there. They're supposed to prove the debt exists before they allow any action to be taken on you. There's going to be a huge number of claims against the corrupted insolvency mafia, who are just as bad as the legal mafia. They should be abolished. These unaccountable people sitting in high office, and they don't know what they're doing. And I just think it's shocking. And the same thing for the small and medium enterprises. People with fantastic companies doing really well, and they're getting stolen through accounting firms. They find ways to trip you up, and I know somebody who had 1,000 employees, turning over £1 million a week, manufacturing steel parts, cornerstone of British industry. Whole thing dismantled by Deloitte Touche. Deliberate, conspired. The big 4 accounting firms I heard from Prem Sikka, they are paying their way, they're paying the silence of Parliament They're paying millions of pounds a year for Parliament to be left to their devices. They get the pick of the crop from all the brightest graduates from Oxford, Cambridge and all the red brick universities. You know, this is a scam. This is a racket of monumental proportions. KPMG gave HBOS a clean bill of health when it was insolvent before the secret bailout. They weren't even audited before the merger. What the blazes is going on? You know, what is the National Audit Office there for? They're supposed to be responsible for overseeing the way the courts are being run, the way all of it's playing out. I got all the disclosure from them earlier this year. They were writing internal memos saying, on our case, ooh, should we report it to the NCA? Nah, don't bother. Why should let someone else do it? You know, this is the sort of thing that's going out with these people, with all these misusing their powers. Anyway, I think I've said enough. I think you've got the picture. We need to find a way to organise ourselves, to bring in the change and be the change that we want to see. And thank you very much, Jason, for this opportunity to share a little bit of what's happening. I hope it will help some people. If anyone's interested in the Sovereign Property Alliance idea that we could get this set up and started, please contact me and we can, you know, really grow a mighty oak tree from this little acorn.
Can people get hold of you anywhere it is if they need advice? Or is it difficult?
What kind of advice?
I don't know, you know, I just wondered if you were accessible if anyone wanted to get hold of you.
Sometimes, yes, but then, you know, yes, possibly, but again, it's difficult when there's so many cases. They've all got the same denominators. It's the roots, you know, I can tell them where to look. You know, check the devil in the detail, check the paperwork, find out who is making this claim and why, find out who's driving the proceedings, find out if the judge is sitting on his oath, find out if it's a court of record. Is it even a court or just a private hired room? You know, this is all the trickery that's going on. You know, they're not disclosing what they're up to. So the advice is generic. You know, you can see the difference between right and wrong, but unfortunately those getting caught up in the, you know, the Georgian knots they try to tie us in aren't prepared. And I can certainly give advice to people on how to, you know, check every detail, read every word on it if someone brings a claim on you. Check the land registry, check the register. I say that if you can register something, you should be able to deregister it. You should be able to opt out of the land register. You know, everyone I know that's gone into the land registry has ended up with problems on their property because solicitors can come along and put a charge on your house. They don't even check that they are solicitors. We have a situation where a lot of solicitors aren't qualified. Guy Taylor, who lost a £950,000, he had a fake loan from Barclays put on his name. He died recently. Cancer. It took over his life. He was fighting the corruption. He had police helicopters coming to his estate and seizing it from him. What on earth is going on? Tom Crawford had 21 white vans coming to Nottingham to throw him out of his house and cordon it off. Who are these people? They look like they were in fancy dress policemen. You know, they didn't look like police officers. They were standing there looking, you know, they just came in great number. You know, secret police, what is this? You know, we have to start looking into this. There needs to be a public inquiry. If we're not happy with something, we have to be the change. You know, we have to say, lobby for change. And let's start with our right to a home, because that's the base for the family unit and for safety. Safety at home, then you can, you know, you can actually do the work you were born to do. We all need that safe haven.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Just to say thanks, Liz, for coming. It's been great to listen to you, honestly, and thanks very much. And Liz helps us understand the prison that we're in and the way we're manipulated. And until you can understand the prison, you can't escape. And one thing I want to say is that most people are so exhausted and so tired and so enslaved and in debt and in fear that they can barely do anything when they get home. All they want to do is drink their wine, you know. So it's very hard for people to understand the prison that they're in. And more than that, it's a very bitter pill for people to swallow, to actually not only admit, but actually recognise that they've been enslaved and lied to all their lives. No one wants to see that, but it's time we did, because until we do, we'll never escape this, you know. And so thank you very much, Liz, for coming. Thank you all for coming here tonight and for your support. And Liz was a guest on my show called Outside the Box, and we'll be posting this up on there, I think. In the next couple of days it'll be up. And thanks very much, everybody, and be brave. And if you one more thing, is I had a chat with Paul Levy the other day on my show, and we were talking about the very basic truth that if you don't step into your power, and if you're not being you, in other words, being an agent for change or speaking the truth, and if you're dislocated from yourself by this system, you die inside. So I urge everyone to start becoming the midwife of the future, which you're here to do. This is your call, this is your, what's the word, sojourn. It's you're the midwife now. It's your watch on the planet. And if you don't do something for the next people that are coming in, you're failing them miserably, but worse than that, you're failing your own responsibility. And you can feel it if you are, because you'd be dying inside. You'd die inside if you weren't doing this, wouldn't you, Liz? Can you imagine it? Mm-hmm. Thanks very much, everybody. Well done, and well done for being you. Thank you. Bye-bye.